Welcome to the Redemption Podcast with your hosts, Staci
and Julia. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of Redemption with your hosts, Staci and Julia. Today's guest has an MSN in Nursing, Leadership, and Administration, is about halfway finished with her PhD in Psychology, an animal lover, and the owner of Managing Me Enterprises. Annie Thomas-Landrum, welcome to Redemption.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm stoked to have you here. When I first met you, we totally hit it off.
Totally
in
did.
the boutique, and I was just like, oh, I'm going to love this girl. So we have a lot to talk about, but before we get started, Isaac, do we have any housekeeping?
Yeah, just a couple things. So the last big event that we had was Rotary Uncorked, and that's over. So the next one that we're looking forward to as an organization is Radiothon in partnership with Ohana Media Group and Q99.7 out here in the Mat-Su Valley. We're going to be doing a radio marathon all day. It's broadcasting out of the studio for the first time this year. We've been doing it for 10 years, and now this will be the first time that we're broadcasting out of the recording studio, which is super exciting. We're going to have staff and clients and community partners, all sorts of people on throughout the day. We have the phone banks getting ready to be set up in the room next over, so it's going to be super official. I'm super excited. That's on November 4th. And yeah, make sure, especially if you're out in the valley, tune into Q99.7, and we'll be on from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. On the podcast side of things, My Voice just came back as well for their season 2. My House podcast, our last guest was Julia Louie from VOA. That was really, really fun with her and Michelle, so go give that a listen. And I don't know. We're doing stuff for Diagnon. It's super secret stuff. You'll just have to listen to find out. We're always rocking and rolling. So yeah, check out all of our super awesome podcasts on the network. That's all I got.
Awesome.
Thank you, Isaac. Well, Annie.
Well, indeed.
Welcome to the brand new studio.
Thank you. It's gorgeous in here. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So whenever we interview a guest, we like to start from the beginning to really get a sense of who the person is, where they come from, how they became the person that they are today. So tell us about your childhood. What were you like as a kid? Where are you from?
Yeah, gosh. So I'm a Kansas girl, and I never thought that I had like a Kansas accent, but people say I drop my K's, so listeners, you can judge. But I'm a Kansas girl. I'm actually the oldest of 8, and yeah, it's a crazy cool bunch. But I grew up. My parents were really young when I was born. I was the oldest, and still am the oldest. It kind of continues that way your whole life.
Unless
it works.
Unless you find out that you have a secret sibling.
Which has
Unless
happened.
the plot twists. Which
That did happen to me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but that's a whole other
That's
story.
another
That's
story.
I need to hear it. But yeah, so my parents were kind of mavericks. They pioneered the homeschooling movement along with other families. We started homeschooling about 4 years after it became legal in the U.S. and had a pretty conservative Midwestern Christian upbringing, and ended up wanting to go into nursing because I just wanted to help people. Mm-hmm. I thought I was going to go overseas and do international missions and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And yeah, so that's kind of where it all started. Both my grandmas were both nurses. My mom actually, as an adult, has become a nurse. So I'm a 3rd-generation nurse, and went to school at a great college in the Midwest, Mid-America, Nazarene, and graduated so long ago in 2004. Wow. So yeah, it's funny. I remember in school when people would say, my professors, I've been a nurse for 20 years, and I would be like, oh God, you're old. You're really old. And now I'm really old. So
yeah.
But are you young for your profession, or for like how far you've been in it? I feel like you kind of had a path paved for you since you were like a kid. Was your career kind of predetermined?
That's a fun question. I've never been asked that before. I think that my my vision for what I thought it was going to be was kind of in the works for a long time, but what it became was something a lot different, but it was so much better than what I dreamed for myself. So I felt really connected to medicine and to helping people from an early age. But I didn't, like most of us, I think all of us, I didn't really know myself. And, I think we're all given a person that we expect to be, that our families and friends expect we're going to be, the life we think we're going to have. And I thought I knew what that was going to be. And I thought I knew who I was going to be. And the way I wanted to help people was very in line with that. But I remember my dad invents medical products, and one of the first international health things that I did was I went to Africa with him on an international mission to introduce one of his products into Malawi. Yeah, it was kind of a cool thing.
Wow.
Kind of.
And it was during the height of the AIDS crisis, and he had invented an umbilical cord cutter that eliminates blood spray during deliveries. And during that time, healthcare workers in Malawi were dying at about 3 times the rate of everybody else because of the rate of bloodborne pathogen exposure. And so we went over, and while we were there, we met up with Greg Allgood, who was with the Live, Learn, and Thrive program from Procter & Gamble. They were doing international water purification, and it was crazy cool. They had this little sugar packet size thing of water purification magic, and we would there was a cow actively peeing in a big puddle, and we purified the water and drank it. So it's like, it was legit stuff. So I remember we were driving along this road in our Jeeps in Kenya at the time, and we stopped because there were some women selling these mineral rocks along the road. And, we participated in local economy a lot, so I wasn't surprised when Greg bought the rocks. But he explained that the women were so nutrient deficient, and particularly minerally deficient during their pregnancies, that they would chew these mineral rocks for the minerals. And I will never forget standing with this international figure who was very well known in that not-for-profit world. And I watched him chew rocks with these women. And it gave me a whole new perspective, because what I thought about helping people was really about how can I help people have what I need, what I want, what I find necessary for my life. And as I stood there and I watched, I realized that view was so far less than where I really wanted to be and what was really, I think, needed, which was to let people be who they are and to allow us to be who we are and to enter into each other's stories in really radically authentic ways, without judgment, without preconceived notions. And so from that point forward, the way I wanted to help people started to change. It started to shift.
That's incredible. Isn't it that part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yeah.
Which level is that on when you're self-actualization?
That's actually the tippy
top.
That's it's pretty fun when we get up there. I think sometimes we sort of take little journeys up and down the pyramid a lot of times. But yeah.
Well, so you're describing a story that to me about like essential minerals in the body, and that seems like lower on the, at the base of the needs. So how does that translate from being like an actual essential, like I need this in order, so that I don't pass out from, mineral deprivation, to, this is about freedom and actualization?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. You have such great questions. When I went into healthcare, as a lot of people do, we go in because we want to help people. I think it's right there in the name, helping professions want to help people. It's not a big mystery. Yeah. And so, I started in neurosurgical ICU right out of school, and built my career on the idea that I was going to be a really good nurse by doing what I knew to do, which was practicing nursing as a superhuman. I wasn't going to be a normal person. I wasn't going to have regular needs. And that meant that I could go a whole shift or, 12, 14 hours, and I didn't need to eat or drink, because if you did that, then you just have to go to the bathroom and then you're off the floor, and that's not good, nurse. So you just didn't. And you just didn't need stuff. You just decided, I'm fine. There's always somebody who needs it more. There's always something more important going on. And so as I built my career on this idea, I kept working to distance myself from my own humanity in order to immerse myself in the humanity of others. And life started to hit like really hard. And I was running a hospital that treats PTSD and addiction. And I had a really credible death threat from a patient who was well able to carry it out. They were a sniper and someone who could act on that. And we had an unrelated shooting incident in a different part of the building. And I'd had things going on in our family as we discovered who we were, and we were working through our own identities and who we wanted to be as a family. And the organization was in turmoil, and I just found myself lost, like just totally lost, because I had gotten so far away from my needs on every level of Maslow's hierarchy. I was disconnected from my physical needs, but also really my emotional needs and my mental needs and my spiritual needs in so many ways. And I just was driving around Anchorage, just parking in parking lots, not even knowing what I was doing or where I was going. And so as I was doing that, my husband, Chris, who has been my best friend for 16, 17 years now, he just said, I think it's time for you to check yourself into the hospital. And, I had these stupid, irrational fears of, what if I go and my counselor's really stupid? And he was just like, we'll find you someone else. It's going to be good. And I was like, of course, they were all wonderful.
Yeah.
But I went and I checked myself into Prov. And I remember sitting there on the bed at the hospital in my purple scrubs of shame that said, I'm not safe. And my dad called. Yeah, it's intense. You go in and you wear that just so they know it's like who to watch carefully and everything. But it's a humbling experience, to say the least. And that actually represents that you are suicidal, that you're actively suicidal. And so it lets the staff keep you safe. But it's a sense of when you come on, and everybody wears them at the beginning because, anyone, if you're being admitted, you're probably a danger to yourself or others.
Right.
And so, but it was this feeling of a deep kind of shame, of I haven't done well enough to stay out there. I haven't done well enough to be okay and just regular. And so my dad called me, and my dad is amazing. And he's just like, I think, most dads who really just want to make things better. And so he called and he said, okay, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do so this never happens ever again? And I remember I just said, like, I didn't have an answer for the first time ever. Like, I always had an answer. I always had the next plan. And I said, Dad, I don't know. I'm just here. And this is the whole plan. This is all I know. And so I ended up going to a hospital in Arizona, and I checked myself in, and going from being the head of a hospital that treats PTSD to checking yourself in, that's a whole new experience, because you go from someone who has all the keys and the answers and the authority to no keys and no answers and no authority. And it's your bags that are being gone through and all of that.
And how brave of you to go, though.
Thank you. Yeah. It was, I'd love to say it was brave. I think at that point it was this realization in my own self that I was thankfully so broken there wasn't a way to go. And I think there is something amazing about getting to the place where things are so broken that we're ready to do something about them, because we can go for such a long time with things just mostly broken.
Yes. We can trudge with broken arms.
Totally broken. It's not working. No.
It's just no.
Right. But I can do it. I can still, it's not broken enough yet. So it's like kind of a relief when things get so broken. You're like, yeah, we're going to.
Got to fix this.
This
now.
is the moment.
Yeah, got to do it. Yeah.
It's a lot like this morning when I finally got my oil change because I had a headlight and a tail light out.
Oh, yeah.
So, you're driving going, it's only a matter of time before I get pulled over. We're now broken enough. We do need to have a pit stop. So, so I was there, and while I was there, I missed my daughter's birthday. And it still really gets to me because if my whole life is about my connection to other people, about being able to truly be with people and to have relationships as the center of my life, and I couldn't be there for my daughter for my birthday or her birthday, I realized that if I didn't find a way to be a person, to be human, to embrace my own humanity, then I wasn't going to get to connect with anybody, and I wasn't going to get to be anywhere doing anything helpful for anyone at all.
Right.
And I remember while I was there, they told us, you're always the same distance from the ditch, no matter how far down the road you go.
I love that.
Isn't that great?
Because how true is it?
Absolutely.
We're all there.
Absolutely. We really are. And that we don't get to have this neutral space. We're always working on recovery or we're working on relapse. Those are the only options for us.
Right.
And, I went in thinking that I was not using substances because I wasn't using substances. But most of the other people there had that diagnosis. So I was going to 12-step programs. I'd never been before, but everybody went. And so I went thinking, this will be interesting. And I found out something phenomenal while I was there was that I was 100% using substances. It was just on the cheap, and I didn't realize it. Because what had happened was my own body chemistry was acting as my uppers and my downers from my trauma. So my hypervigilance and my hyperfocus and my hyperarousal from my trauma, that would actually be hitting the same dopamine receptors and all of that drugs would hit that are uppers, and it would make me that I could do anything. I could get so much done. I got so many promotions, and people would say, how do you get so much done? And you don't want to say, like, it's just my trauma. It's cool.
It's just me self-willing.
Exactly. It's all that trauma unresolved. It really fuels it. And but you can't stay up like that all the time, right? You can't stay in that state.
You are not God.
No, as it turns out, big surprise to me. And so I was doing this other thing as my downers, which was I was micro-dissociating hundreds of times a day. And when on occasion I visit and grace the gym I donate to with my presence, and I'm on the treadmill, for a hard 26 minutes, and my body's like, this is a terrible, I don't like it here at all. Why are we doing this?
I don't like this. I don't like this.
I hate it so much. My mind will often go, we're just going to zone out for a while, not going to be here with you during this space, and then we'll be back,
I like that idea.
We'll be gone.
Maybe I'll start disassociating.
It has a lot of benefits at those gym moments. It's very good. But when we do it, I was hundreds of times a day, and I was going from hyper-focus to dissociation to hyper-focus to dissociation. I was never in that window of tolerance where I was really in touch with myself and grounded with myself and present and all of that stuff. I was always bouncing back and forth between my trauma symptoms. And so it took this unbelievable toll on me that, again, thankfully, I came to a point where I couldn't go forward anymore, and I got to learn how to be a person, just how to be a human person. And it was truly the best thing that ever happened to me. And I think that's really, that process and that journey was really what transformed, that experience in Africa from, those physical needs to that self-actualization point of it's not so much a pyramid, it's really more of a circle. That our life just runs in these circles, right? And then it has these beautiful ebbs and flows that's all interconnected. So, yeah.
That's, oh my God, where do I go from that?
I know. I mean, that piece right there. I mean, and I know this is speaking to a lot of people. I know it spoke to me. I was holding back tears here. just hearing you speak about, the process that you went through and then hitting the rock bottom and saying, yes, I do need help. And then going through the dissociation part and trying to be the superwoman too. I think a lot of women go through that, right? Because we're supposed to be the superwoman. But there's a lot of us that still have trauma.
Yeah.
And I never thought of that the trauma is fueling us as a high. That's just, that's amazing to me. Like,
it's crazy, right?
I just got a lot from that, yeah.
It's crazy.
It connects the dots.
Yeah, no, it does.
Sense.
It totally explains some things,
Absolutely. And we're rewarded for so much of how we use our trauma.
Right.
You know what I mean? Especially if it gets things done. If it gets things done, great. Keep on hitting that button,
Wow.
But I think it really leads us down a path where burnout is inevitable. And I talk about in the work that I do a lot right now is that the no is coming. We can either choose some positive no's in our lives to be able to prioritize the things that are important to us, to be able to say yes to the big things. Or like when I found myself in the hospital, you can have your no find you and you say no to everything because that's where we're at. And so I think that's been really empowering too. What on a daily basis can I feel a lack of shame? Because again, shame has been such a huge motivator in my life. And I find that, again, for a lot of women that I talk to, I'm sure men too, but I can speak to the female side of it because that's a lot of who I've had these conversations with. And there's so much shame that drives so much of what we do, the need to be something more, to be different, to be better.
Always,
to be
every day.
All the things.
All the things, every day, all the time. Yeah.
Exactly. And so how can we continue in that if, like with this false idea that we have to be so much more, if we don't then use those false ideas of shame mixed with trauma to fuel this never-ending chase. And so when we get off of that, it's funny what being human feels like. Because when the pandemic started, I remember I was hitting this time between 11 and 1 every day where I just was like falling asleep like at my computer like every day. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And I thought all these things, I could go to the gym more, but then I was like, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. Let's be serious. And I was like caffeine or, I don't know, something.
Yeah.
And
go for a walk, get fresh air.
That sounds really ridiculous.
I know.
So, let's be serious. I'm kidding. I actually have found I love doing that. We just moved out to Talkeetna a couple months ago, and the walks out there are
beautiful
super
out there.
fun.
Yeah.
So I have become a big walking fan because Talkeetna is all the credit on that one.
I would love to come visit you.
Please do. And seriously, we have cabin free to stay in, and yes, please come and stay with us. We'd love to have you guys.
Nice.
But I started one day out of desperation. I just took a nap. Just kind of in the middle of the day, I just took a nap. And it was crazy because that worked. And I've kind of learned that for me, regardless of how much sleep I've gotten, I will get to a point where my neurons just feel overtaxed and I just feel jittery in my body. You kind of get that anxiety that goes down your arms where you just kind of want to take off your arms, you know, that weird.
Right.
And I do like a hard reset. It's basically like, have you tried turning it off for your computer?
I thought about that today.
It's totally
I'm like,
works.
what if I just took a nap?
It works.
And then got up and I was fresh.
I swear.
And I was a new person.
It is. It is exactly what happens. And I take a nap most days now. And it's funny, like, it's a very vulnerable feeling when we have truly allowed ourselves to come to grips with a break, with being completely broken, and to recognize and to be aware and to feel those places of healing within us that feel fragile, and that we no longer can push in the same way, and I'll find myself doing a whole bunch of things and getting to those edges, and I will have a definite recognition of, here's a line I would have pushed past, and I feel what's on the other side of that now. I feel the weight of that decision. I feel the gravity of it, not just for myself, but for my family, especially my daughters. And my daughters have gotten so good at calling me on it too, because we have this little business that we do called the Sugar Cube, just for fun. And I was baking all night to get ready for something, and I was going to be up a second night. And my daughter came up, she goes, Mom, I'm just a kid. So it's just a kid's opinion. But I feel like being up all night isn't like the best thing for you. And so I just was wondering if you would just please sleep. Like that would just be so, I mean, and you don't have to because you're an adult and stuff and but I'm just saying, if you could. And I was like, oh my God. Like, this is what it's like to know you have limits as a child.
Yeah.
That grown-ups do too. So it's been cool to see what it does for everyone in my space too. Because
around you.
Yeah. Because when I get to have limits and extents that I talk about, then people around me get to say, wow, okay, let's all have limits and extents since we do.
And it's okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, it's transformed really everything that I do. And now I get to spend most of my days working on this kind of stuff.
Yes. So you went through the 12 steps?
I went to meetings. I didn't go all the way through the program, but while I was in the hospital, I went to meetings, which was cool.
Well, the very first step in 12 steps is admitting that your life is unmanageable.
Yes.
With whatever.
Right.
And then it's about being willing to surrender to something that's higher than yourself.
Absolutely.
Which sounds like what you did.
Absolutely.
And that you went through your whole life with this belief system, right, that you were self-willing and powering through, and then all of the walls came in on you at all sides. And you realized that everything was just, it kind of obliterated what your beliefs were about yourself and how
100%.
Everything was supposed to be. So now you're like, okay, what now? You're literally rebuilding your career, your family, life as well. I don't know if you want to talk about that from scratch with no roadmap.
No roadmap. Actually, that could be the subtitle of the last 10 years of my life. I think no roadmap. None at all. Yeah. So simultaneous to all of this happening, Chris and I had been married for about 7 years. And about that time, we had known something was a little different about our marriage from the very beginning. We got married. We had been best friends for a couple of years, and we got married, and there was just something different, and we couldn't figure out what it was. And so we went through all of these just cycles of trying to figure it out and really having our friendship just stay us through that course, but knowing that there was something we needed to discover and there's something was off. And what we figured out after 7 years was that we actually have different sexual orientations. So I'm bisexual and he's asexual. And in recognizing that, we kind of had this, like, it was a huge relief, but also like, oh my gosh, now what do we do? Because this isn't anyone's fault. There's no there's nothing to fix.
No.
This is just us. This is who we are. And so now what do we do? So it really started us on this path. And I remember we went to the sex therapist in DC because that's where we were living at the time. And we told him our story, and he kind of just started laughing. And he was this really cool kind of therapist that had like ripped jeans and like cussed sometimes and stuff. Like he was just very cool. And I remember he said, this is twisted. I don't know if God has a weird sense of humor or what, but there's so many reasons for you guys not to be together, and you're just together because you want to be. So I think you're going to figure it out. I really do. And you can keep coming back if you want to, but I think you're going to figure it out. And so that's really what we set out to do. We really wanted to give our kids two parents who just really loved each other. We felt like our marriage was born out of our love for each other, not the other way around. Right. And so we wanted to figure out how can we give our kids two parents who love each other, whatever that means for our relationship. How can we keep loving each other? So, we went through a long process, and about halfway through, we kind of felt like marriage couldn't really belong to us. And so I wrote this article for Psychology Today. People can still look it up. It's called Divorcing Differently. And it was just about, kind of redefining our relationship on our terms. And we were divorced with the intention of being partners for life. And after about 6 months, I was like, this doesn't feel right to me. Like, I still feel married to you. Like, I still want to be married to you. But we didn't have any idea of that you could do marriage differently, that you could figure it out. And so we decided we wanted to try. And so we transitioned our marriage to a companionship marriage. And then figured out after a lot more work that having a plural family really was what made sense to us. And so in June, I married my second best friend, which is not my second best, but I have two best friends is what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
And I get a new best friend and keep my old, so that's perfect. But Scott and I got married in June. And so we have a more traditional monogamous romantic marriage. Chris and I have continued our companionship marriage, and we all live together in our awesome, fun house in Talkeetna with our pets and our girls. And it works for us. And so, going through this and really having all of those expectations of what life was going to be like, growing up as that very conservative girl in Kansas, to someone who was really kind of living on the edges of what was seen as normal or socially acceptable in so many ways. It was funny how at home I found myself, and how at home it seemed to make everybody else around me when I was myself, because I think that we're all misfits that are kind of hiding it a little bit in some ways, like we're not dichotomous that we fit into this box or that box. We're all the things, we're all the colors, we're
all the pieces.
Yes, we are. And so when we have to maintain this idea that we all fit into whatever, which none of us fit into all the things that we're supposed to.
No.
There's a freedom that comes with being able to just share, this is who I am, and I want to know you. I want to know who you are.
Yeah.
I want to get to experience you, and I want you to be you around me. There's a whole other thing that happens in our relationships. There's a whole other thing that happens in our world, and there's a cost to it as we go along, because society has ways that it kind of course corrects us into you need to keep going. But if we can let go of that and say that that's okay, that we're willing to pay that price, to live out loud and be ourselves, I think that the reward and the benefit that comes from it is a kind of beauty that so far surpasses the cost.
Or the fears.
Exactly. And it is scary. It is fearful. We lost a lot of people along the way in our journey. And it was, people who we loved and who have loved us. And I think that the thing about that is that there are people that our paths are together for a while, and we just walk along in harmony for a while we have it, and then kind of Marie Kondo it, and just we thank those people and those relationships, and we let them go. Not out of, we don't have to do it out of bitterness, but we really can say it's okay that we don't fit together anymore. It's okay that our paths aren't here.
Change is okay.
Yeah. And it's okay if the role that we play in someone's story doesn't stay the same all the time, because that's what I used to think too, that I needed to be a certain person in everybody's story and to be seen in a certain way for always. And we don't have to.
No.
We really don't.
No, we don't.
We're all changing and evolving.
Yeah.
And what advice can you give to our listeners who are going through that? Maybe they've been just kind of putting away those feelings for a long time, feeling ashamed of them. They don't know if opening up, they don't know if they have a safe person to talk to. What kind of advice can you give them?
Well, first, just know that you're really, really okay. You're awesome and you're okay, and who you are is perfect. And it's okay if you can't figure out who that is right now. It's okay if you can't figure out how to express it or how to even explore it or whatever. There's time for that. But right now, just you are awesome. And if you don't have anybody else safe, you can write to me and I will listen, because I would love to do that. I would love to do that. And I think that you're not alone. The way you feel is totally reasonable, totally normal. There's nothing weird about you. And you're going to figure it out. You're going to figure it out. It's going to be okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was the best advice I could hear.
So we're going to want some information on how to put with this podcast, how people can reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
let's talk about how Managing Me came to be, because that's how we can contact you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Managing Me actually just came out of I wrote a curriculum out of my experiences, and I'm a nurse, and so I have a master's degree in nursing leadership and administration, and I've led a lot of teams, but I realized that what I wanted to spend my time doing was just like, how can we help make our healthcare system, but even beyond that, just all organizations and just people have the freedom to be able to be who we are and to connect as individuals. Everything I do is based off of this theory called relational leadership theory that says the truth of any organization or team or group or family is not based on external things or things we have written down on a piece of paper somewhere, but it's really based in the people themselves and the interactions between them. And so it's always growing and evolving and changing. And so if one person comes into the group, it changes the person of the group. And if one person leaves, it changes the person of the group. And if I'm having a stellar day today and a really tough day tomorrow, it changes the person of the group. And so everything we do is really based on that. And so I right now, my full-time day job, I work with UAA, and then I also run my business. And I get to work with teams all over the states doing work on resilience and how can our teams how can we connect as individuals to ourselves and then tell our environments what we really need, tell our environments, what it is that we want and what wellness looks like to us, and then how can we build those pictures together? Because systems are people. So, systems are people, and so if we start with a reconnection back to ourselves, then we can bring authenticity to whatever room we're in, and then when you see how your authenticity is received, then it can tell you a lot about if that's the room for you or not, And so I get to do that a lot. So I do seminars and I do workshops, I do retreats, and I do whole employee retainment programs. I do one-on-one coaching, and I work with some fantastic folks. And I get to do that for the college. I get to do it with my own business. And so it's pretty fun. It's a pretty cool thing.
That's an amazing, word to base your work around, because it's like it kind of keeps you in check all the time, like, okay, what am I practicing? All of that. I ever since I met you, the word resilience has just been like, okay, I remember that resilience lady. How can I be resilient today against all of the things that are trying to get in my way when I'm trying to self-will all of this stuff to happen?
Just take a nap.
That's really the whole course if you want to boil it down to one piece of advice. Take a nap.
Yeah. And looking at your website, which, by the way, she has a beautiful website, and we're going to provide your contact info, how to find you here in just a second. But you have leadership core values that are on the website. Yeah. And I feel, though, I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but I feel that all throughout this building. I'm like, have you talked with Michelle?
I love it
because
so much.
I feel that love and connectedness, and her leadership is just allowed all of us to blossom and fly.
It's amazing.
So
you can tell, like, anytime I come into contact with what you guys are doing, with any of your staff, with any of the programs that you have, I'm just blown away with the authenticity that you bring, the radical acceptance. And I think the most important question that we can really ask is, now what? Because, like, it says that we've embraced the reality of what is, because you can't have options for problems you don't have. But when we embrace what is, then we can say, now what? And I feel like this whole organization is really about a huge now what that is so empowering just across the board. So I'm really excited to get to be affiliated with you guys in any way.
Cool. Well, you're around the building. I mean, that's how I met you. So.
I know, I love it. The boutique is my favorite thrift shop in the whole world. So
same. Half my closet, 75% of my closet is steam driven.
Well, you guys have a big part in our home because we bought the best buffalo skin rug ever. It was only on the floor for an hour. We were very excited, and it sits on our couch, and I look at it all the time and think of you guys. So.
Oh.
Well, that's amazing. I didn't even know we had, like, obviously it went that fast. I never saw it.
They're 1 hour.
So, Annie, how can we find you and get into contact with you?
Yeah. So my website is just Managing Me Enterprises. .com, and my email address is pretty simple. It's managingmeenterprises@gmail.com. So yeah, check us out and get in touch. You can also, that's probably the best way. All my contact information is on the website. So
it'll be linked into the description as well when
Oh,
the podcast
good.
comes out.
You guys are
you
so
should be able to just
official.
click on it from
Awesome.
there too.
Awesome. Awesome.
As long as I remember how to spell managing and me and enterprises, I'm sure I can look it up.
I know I picked the hardest words. I don't know why.
Well, Annie, this has been such a pleasure to get to meet you and know you. The one thing I want to say that I got from today is live out loud and be yourself. And I want to make that into a plaque and put it into the housing that I have for the young girls that I have, and also in my own home for my own girls. This is so important. Live out loud and be yourself. And it's okay.
It's okay.
I love it. And
Take
then
a nap.
And then ask, what's next?
Yes.
Now what?
Now what?
And our final question we ask all of our guests, this is Redemption, Loved and Thriving. And so what does the word redemption mean to you?
You know, I've been thinking about that a lot just because that's the name of your podcast. And I was thinking a lot about sea glass, actually. And I used to live in California where there's a beach where there's a lot of sea glass. And sea glass is amazing to me because it's really just trash. It's common types of glass that were bottles or whatever, jars, that got discarded and broken. And then they went into the sea and got jumbled all about, and the rough edges got worked out, and they became something else. They became art. They became beautiful. They became unique. And I think that when we start our lives, we see our lives as for very common purposes, you know, just regular things, and that we map out for ourselves what our life is going to be, that we are a jar or a bottle or a glass, and that we're fine with that. We have all these plans. And then life happens and we lose so much. You know, we lose and grieve the things we thought we were, the people we thought we were, the life we thought we were going to have. And one way or another, it happens, I think, to everybody. And I mean, I hope it happens to everybody, because I think that process is what, the brokenness is what redeems our life into something different, into something beautiful, into something unique, into art. And so when I think of the word redemption, I think of getting to take back those shards of my life and find that they have been made new and fresh and beautiful, and something that's just me, and that couldn't be anybody else. That couldn't be anybody else, because no one's broken the way I have. No one has had the tumble through the ocean like I had. And it's just me. And everybody around me is just them. And they're their own beautiful art, broken in such precious, sacred ways. And so to me, redemption is what happens when life comes and takes the things we thought we were and replaces us with who we are.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Annie. Thank you for today. I'm blown away. Thank you. Thank you for just being so vulnerable with us and helping our youth and speaking this, and going to answer some letters here probably.
Good.
And
I
That's
love
just
sea
beautiful.
glass.
yeah, I do too. So I'm going to make the plaque that says "Live out loud and be yourself" with some sea glass in
I
it.
love it.
Because I want to remember that. That's beautiful. I want to pass that along. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been an absolute pleasure. I support all the work you're doing. Thank you guys for the work you do. You guys are amazing. And
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much. Well, if you or someone you know are a victim of sex trafficking, please call 1-866-733-7878 or text HELP to 233-733. For local services here at my house, you can call 373-HELP. That's 373-HELP. Remember, if you see something, say something. This is Redemption, Loved and Thriving. Until next time.